So just moving forward, today is a little bit about our story. I'd like to put some facts and figures together and show you, but I'm not. And the reason is because I'm going to be as transparent as I can today, and some of you in this room will be quite horrified. But if they get in the hands of the regulator, I'm screwed. So I'm Phil Pemberton, I'm the Director of Property for the Riverside Group. And I've just given, and John?
Working with Phil for some time, transformation consultant, tend to focus on end-to-end business models, etc.
So our story, it was a little bit about Riverside and our delivery models in the south, and I think the takeaways for you are certainly around business transformation, but many of you have obviously been affected by mergers and acquisitions over the years and bringing teams together. And just to take you through some of our journey, One Housing was brought into the group 4 years ago now, December 2021. It's got a portfolio in the south and central area of 18,000 units, and we've sort of amalgamated our One Housing approach, DLO, with the local DLO running out of our Dartford office, which looked after about 7,000 properties. So we've got 495 staff in property services, delivering what we see as the core services. So our operating models is around delivery of repairs and self-delivery of repairs, together with voids. We also do gas servicing and maintenance and the ICR programs. And beyond that, we let others do that. And 12 months ago, I put my hand up and said, I will go down to London and sort this shambles out. And within 2 months, I had my eyes opened, and I put together for the exec a very comprehensive report of what I found. We had perception satisfaction levels in the group of about 74%. In One Housing, what I inherited down there was 36% customer satisfaction. It's quite a large portfolio of home ownership down there as well. We've got something like 7,500 leaseholders. Within the group, our perception score was about 49%, and I'm sure many of you in the room know that it is harder to satisfy some of those leaseholders anyway. In London, our leasehold satisfaction was 12%. I opened the can further. I had 5,400 unappointed jobs beyond 28 days. And I had 1,800 damp and mould inspections outstanding. I'm sure there's a few of you in the room today that also know some of the challenges in London. It's not easy to get trained, competent staff. It's not easy to keep contractors and subcontractors. Quite frankly, the contractors were having our pants down as well. Some horrific stories of, I think half of them were running taxi companies, never mind with the construction companies. I had a particular company who produced an insurance certificate which covered them for 8 staff, and they were turning over £4.5 million with us. That called into question not just that company, but also how my management team and the competencies and approach of that team. So that sort of just sets the scene of some of those big challenges that I had. There'd also been a significant turnover in key staff within the business at director level over a period of years. And for any of you on the London scene, I don't think any of this story is uncommon to you. And the legacy goes back 20 years, and that's how One Housing customers really felt. And the other bit of my business down there is Riverside Property Services, and that's had a story of its own for the last 6 years. 6 years ago, we had roughly 8 key contractors delivering the services down there, and we brought it under one organisation and called it Riverside Direct, and that began to create a wholly owned subsidiary, but it was managed by Mears. And that in itself caused some challenges as well in terms of the identity of the workforce and how they felt. So when we merged with One Housing, what we did was pull these 2 organisations together to form one organisation. So we were pulling together the best part of 6 or 7 cultures, 4 key systems as well. The One Housing was on a separate housing management platform and a job management platform, whereas the old legacy Riverside stock was on another platform. So some of those efficiencies we could create overnight. So what we're going to do is just go through some of the transformation that we've been working through, and just to see and feel what that looks like at the moment. We've got a combined delivery model now with 25,000 units under one brand, which is Riverside Property Services. We will talk a little bit about people, because you cannot do the job without people, and getting behind them, and we've invested a lot in embedding what we call our Riverside way. It's about your cultures, about your values as well. We're looking at pulling together that common operating platform as well, and also an auditable trail in terms of performance. So I'm not going to go through all this. I'm going to hand over to John, who's going to talk about the work that he's been doing in part of this transformation journey.
Thank you, Phil. Good afternoon, everybody. You'll tell by my accent, I'm obviously from London. So it's not a very familiar room for me. So if you can just indulge me while I follow that warm up. Thank you, Phil. So picking up on Phil's point, I think one thing that we did at the very, very get-go was accept that it was going to be a very, very difficult job. Particularly when you look at the size of the Riverside Group, the different operator platforms that Phil's alluded to, and obviously the culture and the behaviour piece. So you literally had 2 different business units that were working in completely different ways, different processes. So, you know, we did accept it's going to be a difficult job. What that meant in reality was that we had to put a strategy together to manage people's expectations. So a couple of the main themes that were coming out of today, particularly regards information and governance. At board level, they had a certain appetite and a certain level of information that I wanted to see to give them assurance that what we were proposing was correct. At Phil's level, at exec director, it was a different slice of the pie, different levels of intelligence, again, different level of insurance. The main thing for me was actually then onboarding the people that deliver the work. I think picking up on some of the stories that's really resonated with me today about platforms, overlaying IT systems, processes. Ultimately, if you don't get the dressing room on board, it makes it exceptionally difficult to deliver change. What we then designed was an approach. We've picked out, we've got 4 key sort of like tiers for us really, because there are a number depending upon the size of the organisation. Business intelligence and data integrity. Keeping it simple, you can't really manage what you don't measure. So if you're going to make an informed decision to change something, you really do need to understand, and more importantly, be super confident with the data that you're reviewing. Communication, I think, is a common topic in the sector. A lot of organisations I actually work for promote good communication, but it's a common theme for me. Staff at conferences always say, you can do better. What can you do different? So we made a conscious decision to have an internal governance approach to that, which was almost like mystery shopping. So I would deliberately go out and meet 2 or 3 operatives and say to them, so what was your toolbox topic this month? And depending upon the response that I got, I then fed that back to say, your message ain't landed, you've got to change your tactics. So that developed over time. We did something very, very formal, top down, bottom up. One of the things that I personally enjoyed putting together was the steering groups. So we deliberately picked people from every area of the business to basically promote what we were doing, and more importantly, why, and part that they had to play in it. Pretty simple plan, which is based on a risk assessment prioritisation. What we found as part of the initial sort of like review of the world, there was an awful lot that we didn't know. And again, in my experience, that is sometimes the case. So you can plan for everything, but until you start getting into, for example, IT systems, we set up on a path of travel. hit a bit of a brick wall, and then decided, do you know what, I don't think there's any point really spending any more time and money on this because we just can't fix what we can't fix. So I suppose my advice to people is there's nothing wrong with that. You can't plan everything. There will be something that you're going to have to say, do you know what, we're going to have to make a bit of a difficult decision about this. Picking up on people and sort of like customers, I'm a great advocate of promoting good. So again, picking up on Mike's first sort of like narrative this morning about back to basics, we tend to make the same mistakes in the sector. It's unfortunate, I've been in the sector quite a long while, and I do agree, we've not really changed, in my opinion. We talk about change, but we don't actually change. So we made the conscious decision to promote good, positive sort of like outputs, because it's easy to concentrate on negative when something's not going right. Again, the end objective was to basically get that dressing room on side. So one of the things I promoted very, very recently, because I'm big into sport and particularly rugby, your first win is always in the dressing room, in my experience. So method and approach, I won't obviously go through every single bullet point. Element of discovery and findings, which was dictated by Phil. John, this is what my problem is. This is the exam question. Can you go away, engage, and come back to me with a very, very impartial view? Then we got the executive and board transparency bias, so there's a bit of a warming up on the audience, which Phil, as you know, is exceptionally good at. He can work a room. And as I mentioned previously, employee engagement was, identified quite rightly as a very, very key sort of like initial point to get across. You then get into what I would call the real sort of like basics relating to, well, what is it you need to deliver, what you hope to deliver. So coming back to data integrity and analysis, picking up on Richard's point earlier on today, you're then getting down into the realms of how many of what do you need to deliver that customer experience. So that tends to be the detail bit, which I'm good at, but Phil gets quite bored with. You then plumb that into systems, processes, which I said we sort of come. We're a bit of a rock room for the odd sake, but that's for another day. The most important for me after all of that was ensuring that there was an internal self-governance approach so you could keep track of exactly what your commitments were. So in my experience, that's the one and only time you can mark your own homework. Highlights and outcomes. We've still got a way to go. As I said, it's a very, very challenging project because it does literally go from board right down to the engineer that gets in the van every morning and goes out and does a job of work. And there's not one element of service that this transformational project hasn't touched. It literally covers everything. Fleet, supply chain, subcontractor governance and oversight, finance, commercial. So personally, it's one of the only projects that I've been involved with that literally touches every element of business. So, big time, yeah, I didn't take a breath. We've put together some very, very robust projects that run concurrently. Another observation was around timing. So again, in my experience, what tends to happen with a project of this complexity, you lose the bigger picture vision and individual projects start to run across each other. Teams start to get silo, messaging gets diluted, and ultimately what that does, it stifles the momentum. So you don't get where you want to get to in the time that you want to get to. From a practical perspective, picking up on Phil's very, very candid observations, the WIP profile has significantly improved across both business units and has become much, much more consistent and in line with what I would deem as sector common sort of benchmarks. From the compliance perspective, obviously, which is a super, super sensitive part of the business that we deliver, we're far, far more compliant. So we're in very, very good upper quartile targets for your standard stuff, which is your servicing, your electrical testing, and those elements. And the thing for me that I really take away from it, because I'm generally pumping sort of like the people bit, the engagement with the actual people that they deliver the service improved significantly. So they became much more engaged. And then that opened up another set of sort of like conversations and debates about what is it do you need to deliver your job more efficiently. And sometimes it's not Spanner. Sometimes it's John. I'd really like to meet you a couple of times a week so we can just have a chat about what you think's coming down the track in the next 2 or 3 weeks. What's the next target next month? And I suppose the other thing I ain't really keen on, everybody's not the same. We're all wired different. We're all biological for a reason. So Mike Wilson might pick it up within 30 seconds, but it might take me 2 or 3 weeks to land exactly the same message with Phil. So there's nothing wrong in my opinion to repeat until it lands.
So, just in terms of the project and now and lessons learned, first of all, we put a plan in place, and that plan was looking like 2 years for us to go from a very unstable position to something that would satisfy customers, board and the regulator. I'm pleased to say that the CEO and the board had total buy-in on this because the transparency was there and they wanted to get it right and put it right, and they also wanted to put the resources there. So I'd say to anybody, don't hide from what your issues are, get them on the table because it's the only way of getting things sorted out. The CEO decided to set up a task and finish group, which also included the chair of the board and a couple of subject matter experts. So I was not under just intense scrutiny on normal board meetings, but I had an extra layer of governance. And I'm pleased to say that level of governance has now been withdrawn following last week's decision that he feels we're now stable, and we've achieved that nearly 9 months ahead of schedule. That transparency with all stakeholders is absolutely key. And you know, despite my day job of leading a big team, I've had that other real challenge of managing customers, going to late night customer meetings, to be absolutely transparent with the plans, with the progress that we've been making, with some of the challenges about some of the stories they're coming up against. And, you know, no stone has been left unturned, and we've been totally upfront with those customers. I could see people horrified in the room when I mentioned our leasehold satisfaction before. And just to put some context to that, most of our leaseholders in London are paying north of £4,000 a year in service charges. So they're going to hold you to account. And, you know, I have to go and face the music with those stakeholders and ensuring that we are going to provide a good service. There's a whole issue around leadership and accountability. For me, and you know, I've done many projects in the past, but this was first of all one of the most demanding, and I know we've got quite a number of subject matter experts in the room today. I've been coming to Direct Works for 24 years now, and there's been a lot of talk around IT, and we've had people from Advanced that provide the DRS product. We also have people from OneServe. Those two products are actually in one housing at the moment, but they're not compatible with each other. And the people that are losing out are the customers and the staff. The staff are frustrated. And you know, one of the things we learned at an early stage, to do the discovery work and get people in a room to try and make them compatible. But we've had to turn around and say, it doesn't work. And we've drawn a line in the sand and produced a new IT roadmap. So fundamentally, our performance is where it is today, which is acceptable. But there's another place to go and take that forward. And sometimes it takes those really big key decisions when you're bringing together two organisations, two systems and two cultures. And I think that's where there's quite a bit of learning. Putting together those short, medium and long-term plans are absolutely key. And I think people have spoke about the board on many occasions today. And don't forget, your board members are coming from different areas of activity and got totally different areas of knowledge. It's up to you as officers to upskill those people for them to understand what you're about. And if you're going in with a plan that says this is where we're going to get to, they'll lose you. you need to break it down into those short, medium and long-term plans. And transformation takes time. It really does. And I can't emphasize enough how we brought our staff on board throughout this. We started from a very, very low base. One of my first meetings with the trade union, the trade union representative ended up crying in the room because she said it feels like the adults have taken over now, which was pretty compelling, bearing in mind there's been a large turnover of staff for many years. And that was one of the first things I wanted to do, was make sure we stopped that turnover of staff and make sure people knew what they were coming to work to do. They had the accountability, they had the empowerment to go and make decisions and get things done. And comes back to everything you've been talking about today. Right first time. You'll only get that right if you, empower those individuals to do the job and listen to them and support them. And I recognised I couldn't do this without those 495 staff that have actually got there at the moment. So absolutely engaging your workforce has been key to it. And I'm pleased to say that one of the measures that we put in our success factors was moving staff engagement from a pretty low base to above 50%. The recent group staff survey put this team right alongside every other team. So we've achieved that transformation within that 12 months. John's mentioned competing priorities. We have a very, very busy agenda. Customers want a service today. The regulator wants to see, action against all your compliance areas. They want to know where you're up to on your repairs. And we're doing 2 TUPE transfers at the moment in the middle of all this. We're looking at reducing our budgets and reducing budgets, particularly on planned work, due to the current state of accounts at the moment. So there are many, many issues that are going on. There's also a big move in housing management to go to one platform and introduce Salesforce. And again, that's been spoke about today. We've got it in part of the business. There's another competing priority here. So I would just say that in large organisations and mergers, make sure you're looking as wide as you can about what that big picture means, where your plan fits into everywhere else. And the leadership and that accountability needs to be working alongside senior manager, where the bit of give and take, really. You're not going to get everything, and you're going to need the support of the whole business around you. And the last one is clarity on the model and objective of a DLO. It's interesting, I'm making some notes before. My first talk at Direct Works was, I think it was 17 years ago. And we all talk the same language, and I'm really passionate about self-delivery, but I'm also honest with myself. In London, that's a nice to have. And the last thing you want to do is throw the baby out with the bathwater and turn that model round. What I've found down there at the moment is I need to get the systems and processes embedded with the current workforce before I reduce my subcontractors and bring that model in. So that's a little bit about our journey. I've probably taken up enough of your time today. I hope, Philly, you can take some takeaways from our experiences. I'm not saying we've got it all right, but many of you who may be working for large organisations or bigger organisations are going to go through some of this journey. We're always willing to share our story, and we're also willing to be open to criticism, to say we perhaps would have done things better and pick up ideas.